Hello, welcome. I'm Marcus from Tiger Mountain in Nepal. We run a small lodge of just 18 rooms where we really focus on responsible conservation tourism. We have to be able to prove what we say we're doing in sustainability. I think this is really important. There are two real ways of validating what you do. One is certification, where you apply your standards against a third party's set of standards, a sustainability audit of one form or another. The other is verification, where you validate what you do against your own policy. So you still have an independent audit, you still have a third party person coming in to check what you are doing, but that rather than testing against the Global Sustainable Tourism Council's set of criteria, they're validating what you do against your own set of criteria. And I think there are two big advantages in verification. The first is that you, particularly in a small property, smaller properties, it's quite nerve-wracking for the staff, for all the players, suddenly to have someone come in and saying, are you doing this because this is essential, and all that sort of thing. It's quite scary. Whereas verification, you're only benchmarking yourself against yourself. And so all the things that you're being checked on are the things that you know about because it's part of what you do every day anyway. And so I think it's a really big confidence building process. And certainly at Tiger Mountain, we used it in that way. And we started with verification schemes and then only later progressed to auditing or certification schemes in order to have the confidence to move to the independent benchmark as opposed to the internal validation system. And it worked really well. And it happened, we worked with a lady, Jennifer Bobbin, who came out doing her master's research with us, her postgraduate research with us. And so we all grew together, as it were. And this was a very nice sort of organic way of moving from just doing what we thought was right to analyzing more what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how we were doing it. Funnily, as an aside, actually we discovered the things we thought we were good at, we weren't quite as good at, and the things we thought we were really bad at, we were really rather good at. So the old story, when you learn to fly, the first thing you're taught is trust your instruments, not your instincts. And in a way, with whether it's verification or certification, that is the underlying truth. You're trusting the instruments, you're trusting the actual measures that say you saved 104 kilos of plastic this year, because you can quantify it and you've got that data there, which really proves any statements you make. And obviously that leads to enormous credibility. It's also great internally, you know, staff feel a sense of achievement and a sense of direction, a sense of moving forward in the right way. So I think it is a very positive and valid thing. The problem is for me that certification by its very nature is global or regional or whatever. And however hard people try, you tend to get a one-size-fits-all thought process creeping in. And of course, to an extent, that is inherent in the nature of certification. It is someone's standards, and you are looking to see how you compare to those standards. But equally, if it is too European-centric or too American-centric or too Asian-centric, wherever, it doesn't matter. The further away you are in your property from that focus, the more difficult that certification becomes because of the nature of the way things are done where you are and the nature of the thought processes behind the standards as they were set by the certification body. At Tiger Mountain, we evolved from verification to certification and now run the two in parallel. This came about because a postgraduate from Leeds Metropolitan University came to do her master's thesis with us, looking at systems for verification to see how a practical system could be created that would be easy for hotels and smaller properties to use all around the world, yet at the same time have integrity and validity as a verification and independent audit process. So Jennifer came, and we started, of course, with our systems, as I suppose so many of us do, on the back of an envelope and an Excel spreadsheet. And this worked perfectly well in its way, but it involved the costs of Jennifer coming to do physical audits a long way from the UK to Nepal. That was obviously both expensive. You have air miles, you have CO2 emissions, and all the issues. And so Jennifer fairly quickly progressed to looking at online systems where, particularly after visiting Nepal, knowing how we worked, the need for a physical presence became less, because she knew the system, she knew how we worked. And therefore online was easy enough to validate and only have to dig deeper on certain points just to cross-check things. She created, in effect, a halfway house called Just Report, which was good. It fitted the bill, but it wasn't very easy for it to scale up because it was very case specific. And so she moved on from there to create the present model, Yardstick, the present model, which works really well. It's entirely online. We upload the data. She can then download it, analyze it, question it. And this is a very effective system for us. It covers all the areas of supply chain, of philanthropy, of chemical usage, of environmental CO2 emission calculations, and works really effectively. It took a bit of time for us to get used to the shift, but we got there slowly, and my colleague Ishwar, who does the majority of the data upload, now can bing through it really quickly. And it probably takes him an hour a month. And I think this is something that, talking with other people, there's been a lot of fear of, oh, we'll have to employ someone else full-time just to do this. Truth is, you really don't. For so much of what you do, it's doing what you do anyway, whether it's, doing the bookkeeping in an accounting sense for your electricity bill, where you just spend 5 minutes and do a similar sort of online bookkeeping for your electricity bill to get the units of electricity used for your carbon calculations. So it really isn't an overload of the systems. And our fears that it might be, as with others who haven't been down this road, really were allayed as just by practice and doing. And we found it a very effective, simple system. The electricity bills come in, again, how many units of electricity, how much was paid, all goes up onto the system. So it's really an extension of the financial month-end accounting, or the financial quarterly accounting, depending on how any particular business wishes to run it. And Yardstick is designed to be flexible, to use whatever system you want to use. It will tailor itself to your processes and timelines very nicely. We weigh our waste each time we take the waste to be composted, separate out, depending on what category of waste it is. We weigh it and then upload that data. So, waste to compost, 50 kilos this month. We also input the number of guests we've had in what we call bed nights. So one guest, one night, one bed night. So that becomes a benchmarking. So you can then obviously kilos of waste per guest, kilos of waste per month. All these things automatically calculate. We run both, and I think that's important, because the certification scheme standards will change over the years, but they'll change very slowly. Whereas we might want to ramp up faster. So with verification, we can add bells and whistles to our responsible tourism policy and show that we're performing to a higher level 1 year to the next. Because you just do it when you do it. Whereas the certification scheme, you can suggest things to them, but it might take them 2 or 3 years to absorb that within their criteria, because obviously their criteria spreads over a wider geographic area, a wider range of properties and products that they're dealing with. So in that sense, I think when you are accelerating in the sustainability monitoring process, verification is more adaptable, more responsive.